Hi and welcome back. Today we are going over all of the eyeshadow products that I used in May, from the least used to the most used. So we're going to start off with all the ones that were used once. We used the Lethal Avatar Glitter Gel in Soka once to finish its uses for the project it was in. We used my second Nomad Singles palette. This has ones from the Costa Rica and the Romeo and Juliet palette. And specifically we used the shade River Trail, which is from the Costa Rica palette. For a collab look, that's 2826 Polar Express. We used in that same collab as that one. We used this shade, and this shade. It was for the Leah collab, Creative Art with Hearts, Vintage American. Next we used the Christmas Eve palette. And if I remember right, we used this one and this one. Again for a collab look. 5, 3, 14, 1. We used the Troublemaker palette for the same reason that we keep using this Troublemaker palette, which is for a collab we needed a gray. Well, a grayish taupe. We used the shade here. I said for the one we keep using for this one. But if I remember, but from the looks of the palette, I think we used this one. It was for one of the feline face collabs. Then for a random makeup look, we used this palette, Sunday Soiree, I believe. Yeah, just this one was the one that was rolled in. 2, 5, 7, 9, 15, 7 Ireland palette. This was at the beginning of the month. I do not remember what it was. It was for the same random makeup look. I know this part of the palette was covered in the picture, so it's one of the ones over on this side. I think it was this one, but I'm not positive. And I can't tell. I blew that one off. And finally, the Trove palette got one use this month. And it wasn't this one this time because the shade is basically in another palette. We used Dive Deep, which is looking green for you, purple for me. I don't know if I can get the purple to show up. Nope. See, it looks purple on my side, and it just looks gray on your side. Oh well. It's a problem with multi-chromes. Now, for all the palettes that were used twice, we have the first Nomad Singles palette. No, one of them was that Vintage American. We used all three of these. And then we used just this one in the other look. The Lure palette was used twice. And I believe one of those was for this shade, and the other one was for the Feline Face Collab. We used this one. And then Beauty Below, its sister palette, was used twice. I know Beckon was one of the shades, and I believe for the other one we used Lull and Slay, as well as Watery Grave. And finally, the Lethal 3 palette was used twice. One of those was just for the wet liner here, and the other one was for the shade here. Three times we used the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. One of those was to finish Game Pan and Empowered. One of them was for the random makeup look. I only got one random makeup look in this month. Trying to remember which shade was used. Oh, Precious was the one that was rolled in. And then the other one we used Empowered. There were no palettes used 4 times. So for our 5, we start with our old Project Level Up. Used 4 times, getting the last of our uses on Spontaneous, and probably used some of the others as well while we were making those looks, but it was mostly focused on getting that final pan for level 3. And then Dandelion. Hold on, I gotta cover the shade because it's crumbling to pieces and it's all gonna fall down. We've been trying to hit pan on this shade for a project. No pan yet, but we did get 5 uses in the last month on that one. See, crumbly. And finally, the Arrow Inspired palette from Adept Cosmetics was used 5 times, and those were all in this shade, which is in Project Pan Those Eyeshadows. We're trying to get pan. No pan yet, but got 5 uses. Not great, but, and that pile's about to fall over. Let me split that. Okay, used 6 times. Was the Natasha Denona Mini Gold. We were working to finish up the center shade for Project Throwback 30. And we finally got that done in 6 more uses. So that was our only one in for 6 uses. The rest of this pile is 7 or more uses. Let me just spread these out a little bit so they'll be easier to grab. The Air palette was used 7 times. All of those were on Moon Peach, which was in deck panning to try to hit pan, and we hit pan on this today. It's on the inner corner. So we got that in 7 uses. Also in 7 used 7 times was the Huda Beauty Nude Light palette, which we've been trying to hit no pan left behind 5 times on all these shades. Haven't gotten 5 on any of them yet, but it was used 7 times trying to work towards that goal. Terra Moon's palette was used 8 times. And actually multiples are in. We have both this shade and this shade currently in projects. I believe this shade was still in a project when we were doing it. And I know for for one of the collabs we combined these 2 shades. So this one's not in project, but it got used. And this yellow also got used in one of the Dandelion looks to top up that yellow satin. The Surrender palette was used 9 times from Unearthly Cosmetics. We're trying to hit pan in the shade Intoxicating for Pan Those Eyeshadows. No pan yet, but we got a good dip in 9 uses. Any 10s? No 10s. So for 11 uses, we have the Citrus Punch. We're trying to hit pan in the shade Zest, also for pan those eyeshadows. Again, at the top, it's always projects. So we've got a bit of a dip going up in there. It was a nail dig that I've been working to exploit to try to get pan. That's been used 11 times, still no pan. Which one's next? Next is the taupe palette. We had 2 shades in here. We had Bedrock in for 20 uses in one project to expand the pan, and we've hit that goal. But we also have Boa in to hit pan and nothing, even though we've used this palette 14 times, and this shade has been used all 14 of those times. And finally, at the top, as always, is our Project Level Up palette, which is the Lethal Avatar Earth palette. Which we are working on for project, level 4. So we managed to hit pan in this shade and this shade in the last month. And we're currently working on trying to get pan in this one and finish our uses on the mattes. We've used this palette 15 times in the last month, which isn't too bad, but that is our most used palette. So those are all the palettes that have been used. Again, I'm going to have Deb B linked in the description. She had created a project a couple years ago called E.Y.E.S, Enjoy Your Eyeshadows, which is what got me started recapping my shadows each month. And while she's not doing it this year, kind of hope she brings back next year or something. Deb, if you're watching, please. I know a couple people are still doing the Eyes Project Pan, but I don't like doing them when I don't like doing this small of a project when the creator is still active, but not doing the project. So we're just doing usage. So anyways, that's all, and we'll see you next time. Bye.